Are the LA Kings on the verge of announcing who their next head coach will be? We discuss that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network, also host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Coming up on today's show, we'll update you on the playoff run for the Kings AHL affiliate, the Ontario Reign. We'll have a World Championship update on the four Kings participating in that event, including a head-to-head matchup between Pierre-Luc Dubois and Adrien Kempe. But first, 2 weeks ago today, LA Kings GM Rob Blake said the organization would be naming their next head coach in a couple of weeks. Now, a couple of weeks is a bit vague. Could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be today. Former NHL goalie, broadcaster, and insider Kevin Weeks of ESPN and the NHL Network set out a cryptic post earlier today on X with a picture of the Hollywood sign. Now, he's been known to enjoy breaking news, and it's hard to imagine that this breaking news doesn't involve the LA Kings. He certainly was putting out a tease. Last game for ESPN that he was broadcasting, he came on in between periods and had some breaking news about Carolina Hurricanes coach Rod Brind'Amour. So it is possible with ESPN broadcasting the Game 7 tonight between the Canucks and Oilers that he'll be waiting to make a breaking news announcement during that broadcast. We shall have to wait and see. It is possible that you are watching this show at some point and the announcement has been made, but as are we recording this in the early afternoon on Monday, no announcement from the LA Kings on who their next head coach will be. But again, Kevin Weeks, ESPN NHL Network, teasing us that he may be breaking some news at some point later today. Now, I mentioned previously that the Kings are in competition with other teams looking to fill their head coaching vacancies, specifically Toronto, Winnipeg, New Jersey, San Jose, and Seattle. Well, you can scratch off the man at the top of my wish list to be the Kings' next head coach, and that was former St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup winning head coach Craig Berube. He is now the new head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, it is very possible, even likely, Berube was going to take the Leafs job over the Kings job, but by all accounts, the Kings didn't even talk to him. Now, do I know that 100% they didn't reach out to him? No, but there were several reports when Berube did interview for other vacancies like Toronto and Winnipeg and New Jersey. Now, the Leafs and Jets both exited in the first round of the playoffs. The Devils didn't even make the playoffs. So if you're kind of comparing jobs and trying to figure out where would the Kings rank amongst those four teams as far as an attractive head coaching vacancy, I mean, that's up for debate. I certainly believe if the Kings reached out to Craig Berube, he would at least listen to what they have to say. I mean, why wouldn't he? If the Kings, in fact, didn't reach out to him, the question is, why the hell not? What harm would it do to talk to the most attractive head coaching candidate on the market? It doesn't appear the Kings even talked to Berube, and now he's gone. It makes no sense to me not to reach out to him, not to talk to him, and it would make no sense to me for him to say, no thanks, LA, I don't want to talk to you. I mean, only positive things, frankly, can come out of those kinds of conversations, and you never know where they're going to go. Maybe he comes in here and says, you know what? I think LA is an amazing opportunity, and I'd love to coach here. Maybe, he says, maybe he says no. Maybe he says this isn't an attractive job, and that gives you a message as well that there's some things broken in the organization. The point is, you don't know, you don't have a chance to discover anything if you don't have a conversation. And again, it appears the Kings did not with Craig Berube. Now, after Berube, a lot of people were keeping an eye on the Carolina Hurricanes situation. Their highly respected head coach, Rod Brind'Amour, his contract was up after the end of the season, and there were some reports that maybe there was a chance that he could leave Carolina, even though, if you don't know that situation, he's kind of like if Dustin Brown were coaching the LA Kings, right? He was the captain of their only Stanley Cup winning team. He's beloved there. He likes it there. So it would have been pretty wild if he decided to leave. But hey, money talks. And there was an opportunity in Seattle where their GM is Ron Francis, who he played with at Carolina. And so it was thought that if he didn't reach a deal to return to Carolina, that he would probably go to Seattle. Well, he's signed a deal, as Kevin Weeks announced during an ESPN broadcast, to stay in Carolina. So he's not going anywhere. Now, if Rod Brindamore had left, again, Seattle was the most likely destination, or at least that was what the thinking was. And now that he is off the list for them, there are reports that the Kraken are going to be talking to former Kings player and Stanley Cup winning coach Dan Bilesma about their head coaching vacancy. I had floated the idea that because Bilesma has a relationship with the Kings, that he could be an attractive candidate for LA. And if you know anything about what happened in the series between the Ontario Reign and the Coachella Valley Firebirds, coached by Dan Bilesma, you know that the Kings organization, the Brass, they had a good chance to look at Dan Bilesma's coaching style and what his teams can do up close and personal with what happened in that series. Spoiler alert, we'll talk more about that coming up. But again, no indications that the Kings were looking to talk to Dan Bilesma, and he's up for the head coaching job with the Seattle Kraken. Speaking of the Ontario Reign, their head coach, Marco Sturm, I think is the only other real candidate the Kings are considering other than promoting interim coach Jim Hiller to the job full time. It would make total sense that the Kings maybe did not decide to officially interview Marco Sturm until the Reign's season was completely over, letting him focus completely on the job at hand. But now that that season has come to an end, I got to believe that they are either talking to him or going to talk to him very soon. Maybe they've talked to him already today. I don't know. It was thought that Sturm could also be a candidate to rejoin the Kings as an assistant coach, as there is a vacancy there with the departure of Trent Yanni. However, there's also another NHL head coaching job that is open. I mentioned it earlier, the San Jose Sharks, and I reached out to our guy, JD Young, the host of Locked On Sharks, and he did, in fact, confirm to me that Sturm is a candidate for the Sharks head coaching job. But he has not officially talked to them as of yet, but they want to interview him. They want to talk to him. He's a former Sharks player. Now, would the Kings be persuaded from not keeping Jim Hiller because they don't want to potentially lose Marco Sturm to San Jose? It has long been thought that Sturm was being groomed to one day be the head coach of the LA Kings. Now, I'm sure the Kings would hate to lose him. They would hate to even lose him more to a division rival. So would they rethink possibly keeping Jim Hiller in favor of Marco Sturm because they don't want to lose him? It's a very interesting question. We'll find out the answer here possibly in the very near future. Now, John Hoven from Mayor's Manor, want to give him credit. He did an interview with Marco Sturm after the Reigns game on Sunday and asked him about his future as far as being a head coach. And what he had to say was this, quote, Sturm said, "It's nice to have a little attention. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm ready to take the next step. I love what I do. I think I'm a pretty good head coach," end quote. Hoban then asked a follow-up question, asking him specifically if he'd rather be an AHL head coach or return to the NHL as an assistant with the Kings. And he said, quote, "I'm a head coach. If nothing works out, I'm going to be here. That's where I want to be. It's not my goal to be an assistant. I think I'm a better head coach than an assistant, and I'm going to keep that as long as I can," end quote. So that was Ontario Reign head coach Marco Sturm, clearly showing that he believes he's ready to be an NHL head coach. Looking forward to the opportunity of potentially talking to the Sharks and maybe the Kings about that possibility. But if it doesn't work out, he intends to be the head coach of the Ontario Reign again next season. So some very revealing comments there from Marco Sturm. So it seems to me right now, with the Kings seemingly not talking to anyone else, that it's either going to be Jim Hiller or Marco Sturm as the Kings' next head coach, which is pretty much what I've been saying all along. Now, if they are talking to anyone else outside the organization, I'll give the Kings a ton of credit for not letting it get out in the media whatsoever. I think, however, it is more likely that at this point they aren't talking to anyone else, which is disappointing. Again, I don't understand why not have as many conversations as you can with as many different people. You find out different things and what the interest is in your job from other people. Pick other people's brains. Ask them, if you come in and we're the next head coach of the Kings, what would you do about Pierre-Luc Dubois? What kind of system would you run? What do you think our strengths are? Those conversations to me are invaluable. And if the Kings aren't in fact having any of those conversations, I think that is certainly a criticism of the people running the team. Again, I don't know that 100%, but it seems extremely unlikely that we in the media would have heard nothing about them interviewing other candidates. So, look, I have nothing against Jim Hiller or Marco Sturm. I think that they are both attractive candidates in their own right. But I've said all along, look, they're people we already know their voices. We've heard them. We know them. I believe the Kings would benefit from having another voice from somewhere else come in and take this team hopefully to the next level. But again, it seems right now we know who the next head coach is going to be because we're familiar with these guys. Is it Jim Hiller? Is it Marco Sturm? My money is on Hiller getting the job, but we shall see. And maybe we'll find out as soon as later on tonight. I alluded to it earlier. The Ontario Reign season, unfortunately, has come to an end. We'll give you the details on that next and talk about their season here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide for your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Life insurance may not be something you're thinking about, but you should because you never know what can happen in life, like a dog barking. Be responsible and be ready. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top candidates and their team of licensed experts on hand to talk you through it. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policygenius offers you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurance over another, so you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Well, the Ontario Reign saw their postseason run end Sunday night with a tough 3-2 home loss to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Tough one for the Reign, who were hoping that home ice would be the difference to get a win and possibly get back in the series after they lost the first 2 games on the road. Game 1, 3-2. Game 2, 5-3. Now, in this game 3, Ontario had a 2-0 lead after the first period, thanks to goals from Alex Turcotte and Tyler Madden. However, in the second period, Coachella Valley responded with 2 goals of their own. The 2 teams were tied 2-2 going into the third, with the Firebirds getting the only goal of the game the rest of the way, and they pull out the 3-2 victory. The loss means that the Firebirds were swept in the best of 5 series, or the Firebirds swept the Reign in the best of 5 series, 3-0 to advance to the AHL's Final Four. Now, Ontario was coming into this series red hot. They'd won 5 in a row. Goalie Eric Portillo had allowed only 3 goals up to that point. But he did allow 3 goals, obviously, in the loss to Coachella Valley on 23 shots. Finished the postseason having started all 8 games. He had a record of 5-3, 2.16 goals against average, and a .916 save percentage. Tyler Madden, TJ Ward, and Taylor Ward, or TJ Tynan, and Taylor Ward, they led the Reign in postseason points. Each had 7. Tyler Madden also led the Reign in postseason goals with 5. Checking players that are expected to compete for roster spots next season. Defenseman Brant Clark finished this postseason with 6 points, all assists. Forward Samuel Fogimo, you would have to say was a bit of a disappointment. He had 2 goals and 3 assists in 8 playoff games. That's not terrible. But considering he had 43 goals in 50 games during the regular season, obviously I think a little bit more was probably expected from him as far as goal scoring. Akil Thomas also had 2 goals and 3 assists during the postseason this year for the Reign. And Alex Turcotte finished with 2 goals and 2 assists and had a goal in the loss in Game 3 on Sunday. Looking back at the season for the Ontario Reign and some of the players that we believe will have a chance to play for the LA Kings next season, obviously you got to start with defenseman Brant Clark. 46 points in 50 games this season. That was good enough for fifth in the AHL as far as points scored by a defenseman. That despite the fact he played far fewer games this season than the other defenseman he was going up against for the scoring title. The leader in the AHL as far as defenseman in scoring was Kyle Capobianco. He plays for Manitoba. He had 8 more points and played 19 more games than Brandt Clarke. So Clarke, certainly had he played the entire season in Ontario, he probably would have been the leading scorer amongst defensemen in the league, which would have been a very nice feather in his cap. But of course, he had some time with the LA Kings, and so that wasn't the case. Clarke appears to be the most likely Reign player again to crack the Kings starting lineup next season. With the likely departure of Matt Roy, he would certainly slot in at some point behind on the right side. Drew Doughty and Jordan Spence in the mix as well. Clarke could be the third pairing defenseman, could be the second pairing defenseman, and certainly would likely see time on one of the Kings power play units as well. Samuel Fagemo, Akil Thomas, Alex Turcotte appear to be forwards that will have opportunities to play in LA as well this upcoming season. We talked about Fagemo's numbers. Akil Thomas finished with 22 goals and 24 assists with 22 goals for 46 points. That was in 64 games. Of course, he had a brief eye-opening stint with the Kings this past season, had 3 goals in 7 games. Would not expect him to be able to replicate those kinds of numbers if you were up with the Kings next season. Certainly in a fourth line role, but he certainly showed in a brief amount of time with the Kings his willingness to go to the net and have some scoring touch when he's around the net as well. So certainly excited to see what Akil Thomas did this past season for the Ontario Reign and in his brief look with the LA Kings. And Alex Turcotte, former first-round draft pick, stayed healthy enough this season, playing in 55 games, both in the combination of Ontario and LA. 35 games for the Reign, he had 10 goals and 29 points. 20 games with the Kings, he had a goal and 4 points. And with the future of Blake Lizotte bit up in the air right now with the LA Kings, I could see the Kings turning to Alex Turcotte, wanting to get something on their investment of that first-round pick. The fact that he played pretty much an entire season relatively healthy and looked pretty good. Again, another kind of a Blake Lizotte type of energy guy, not afraid to go to the net, not afraid to go into the corners and make things happen. I could see Alex Turcotte being the Kings' fourth line center come next season. Now, Clarke, Thomas, Fagemo, Turcotte again appear to be the likely candidates to get a chance at some playing time with the Kings next season. Goalie Eric Portillo, I would say, has an outside chance. However, it should be pointed out that there are always players that surprise. Talk about Tyler Madden. He's been a guy who's been in the organization for a while. He had a very nice postseason. Maybe he gets a chance and makes the most of it. After all, we had no clue or thought or expectation that Alex Laferriere was going to play 81 of 82 games for the LA Kings this season after just 4 games the previous year with the Ontario Reign. So you never know who can step up, who can surprise, and who could maybe grab one of those spots that we're not talking about at this point. So we'll see how it plays out for the LA Kings. But again, solid season for the Ontario Reign. Several players who made solid contributions. A breakout season for Samuel Fagemo. Does his game translate to the NHL level? That remains to be seen, but it looks like he's going to get an opportunity, and we'll see what any of these guys can make the most of that opportunity next season as probably bottom 6 forwards with the LA Kings. How did the Kings players do over the weekend at the World Championships, including Pierre-Luc Dubois going head-to-head with Adrian Kempe? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy. Turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Let's get you updated on a busy weekend over in Czechia. Some people call it the Czech Republic. It's changed its name. It's more modernized, I guess. But anyway, the IIHF World Championship is going on over there, and you probably know 4 members of the LA Kings are taking part in that event. We will start on Saturday, where Switzerland and Kevin Fiala crushed Denmark 8-0. Fiala is having a strong tournament, 2 goals and an assist in that win over the Danes. Sweden handed Latvia a 7-2 defeat. Adrian Kempe with an assist, and Carl Grundstrom held without a point in that one. And Canada got by Finland by a score of 5-3. No points in that one for Pierre-Luc Dubois. On Sunday, we had a battle of undefeated teams as Canada and Pierre Dubois took on Switzerland and Kevin Fiala. Did I say earlier it was Kempe? Is Fiala against Pierre-Luc Dubois? I may have screwed that up. So yes, it was Switzerland against Canada, Pierre-Luc Dubois against Kevin Fiala. Dubois played 17 minutes and 35 seconds, had 23 shifts, but did not have a point in that game. A win by Canada, by the way. Kevin Fiala had a very eventful game. He had a beautiful power play goal to tie up the game at 1-1 and got Switzerland their first goal. Then Kevin Fiala giveth and Kevin Fiala taketh away. Fiala was called for a 5-minute major penalty for kneeing Dylan Cousins of Canada. He was also given a game misconduct and ejected from the game. Canada went on to score 2 power play goals on that 5-minute major, took a 3-2 lead, and won the game by a score of 3-2. So Kevin Fiala, an eventful tournament. He's playing really well, but that obviously cost his team big in that one. I saw the play. I don't know that it was anything malicious, but it was a knee-on-knee collision, and Fiala was kind of the instigator of the collision, so obviously you could understand the call. And international play, they're a little bit more strict when it comes to those types of hits from behind, hits knee-on-knee, things like that. They're not afraid, or I guess they're more likely than maybe in an NHL game to throw somebody out. And that's what they did with Kevin Fiala. I don't know if that comes with a 1-game suspension or not. I don't think it does. But anyway, Canada improving to 6-0 in the tournament, and Switzerland fell to 5-1 with one of the marquee games so far in that event. As for Kevin Fiala, so far, 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points in 4 games. And by the way, lucky on that knee-on-knee hit that not only did he not hurt the other player, but he didn't hurt himself as well. As I keep mentioning, I'm very afraid somebody's going to get hurt in this. Hopefully that's not the case. For Pierre-Luc Dubois, he has 2 goals and 3 assists for 5 points in 6 games so far for Canada. And earlier today, we had Sweden beating France 3-1. Sweden's 6-0 in the tournament. Adrian Kempe had another assist in that win. No points in that game for Carl Grundstrom. So in the tournament so far, Adrian Kempe has 4 assists in 6 games, and Carl Grundstrom 1 goal in 6 games. So that is updating you on what's going on with the 4 LA Kings taking part in the IIHF World Championships going on over in Czechia. Not exactly sure when the medal round gets going, or right now they're in the qualification round. Up next, they'll pretty soon, I would guess they'll get into the kind of the knockout stage. So we'll see. All the teams are doing well that the Kings are playing on. Again, Sweden is 6-0, Canada 6-0, and Switzerland 5-1. So all those teams certainly favorites to get into the medal round for sure. All right, that is going to do it for today's show. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up the rest of the week, obviously we will be waiting day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour to see if the Kings do in fact make an announcement as far as their head coach. Was Kevin Weeks just teasing us, or does he have something to announce later on tonight? We'll certainly let you know about that on tomorrow's show. But we are expecting an announcement on the Kings LA head coach. I would say sometime this week. It certainly appears that it is imminent. Certainly working on a special guest this week, hopefully to react on what's going on with the LA Kings and their next head coach. And of course, on Friday, if we do get a new head coach named, expect you guys to react on that. Lots of feedback. Feedback Friday show, as always. Want you to participate in that coming up on Friday. The email address, if you want to get an email in for that show at some point this week, is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. If you're watching on YouTube, we always appreciate your comments in the comment section as well. And sometimes, like this past show, we use some of those comments in our feedback show as well. Also, love to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will talk to you tomorrow, hopefully with some news. But again, we're here all week for you, getting you updated on what's going on with the LA Kings coaching search, such as it is. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.